What's up everybody, it's the River here, and today I'm going to take you through my attempt at a Pokémon HeartGold Randomizer Nuzlocke with Hardcore Rules. For those of you who might not know, Hardcore Nuzlockes include extra restrictions to make the game more challenging. I'll leave the most important points on screen now and a full list of the rules in the description below. But the main addition I added specific to this run is that I'm only allowed to use one legendary Pokémon on my team at any given point. I know this sounds kind of absurd. Most hardcore rule sets explicitly ban legendary Pokemon because they are so strong, but I wanted this run to get kinda wacky, so in the Universal Pokémon Randomizer, I made sure that legendary Pokemon were fair game for randomization. The one legendary rule is something I actually imposed in the middle of my run, because when I started out, I didn't expect legendaries to make that much of an appearance, but let's just say I was wrong, and it was awesome. I'll make a note of exactly which randomizer settings I used, also in the description below, but for the most part I just adjusted the wild and trainer Pokemon, didn't touch abilities or movesets. I also used the type-themed trainer setting, which means that trainer classes like bug catchers, bird keepers, and black belts will have their assigned Pokemon type randomized as well. The main reason for this is that it allows for all the gyms to still be type-themed, and considering that I'll have 16 gyms to fight thanks to the Kanto endgame, I thought it'd be pretty cool. But with the setup out of the way, let's get into my attempt at a Pokémon HeartGold Randomizer Nuzlocke. Here's how it went. My first taste of randomization leads me to a very easy decision, as my starter choices are a Diglett, a Voltorb, and an Electivire. Besides being a fully evolved and really powerful Pokemon, it's also a trait evolution, which means this is the first time I've been able to use one in a run. I run into my rival on my way back from Mr. Pokemon's house, and I thought he was supposed to have a Voltorb, but he seems to have found himself a Swinub. So he should have a different team of Pokemon each time I see him. Soon thereafter, I follow Ethan for the catching tutorial, and this man murdered a perfectly good Ivysaur with his Hitmontop, and then has the audacity to look at me and say, yeah, just do it like that. Funniest catching tutorial I've seen in a while. Even better than that though, now that I have some Pokeballs, I can get my first encounter, which based on the Pokemon that I've seen already, should have been a Celio, but I guess not. Now level 2 or not, Cresselia is still a legendary Pokemon with a crazy catch rate, but I did adjust that using the randomizer settings, just in case I happen to run into one early like this. I really thought I'd be getting a Celio, because it was all I saw on my way to and from Mr. Pokemon's house, but I even ran into 2 more Cresselia right after my encounter. There is balance in the universe, however, because when I went to get my encounter from Route 46, I accidentally killed a Pineco with a critical hit quick attack, and I really would have liked to use a Fortress. My next few encounters are all pretty amazing as well. I find a Gible on Route 30, a Paris on Route 31, I guess he followed me all the way from Legends Arceus, and an Aerodactyl in Sprout Tower. Hell yeah. Also, as a demonstration of the type-themed setting, all the sages in the Sprout Tower were fighting-type trainers, so Cresselia got a bit of a workout. So with a pretty impressive team already, I prepped for the fight with Falkner by scouting his typing and battling his gym trainers, quickly realizing that he's now a normal type trainer. With that in mind, I led with Electivire, as Falkner sent in a pretty beefy Clefable. Low Kick on the first turn does almost all of Clefable's health, as it responds with a Metronome Volt Tackle, which just gets absorbed by the Mortar Drive ability. Another Low Kick on the next turn takes down Clefable, and Falkner's ace is revealed to be a Swellow. Very fitting for Falkner, but that also means that 2 Thundershocks get a very quick kill, and a very quick badge number 1. Moving past Violet City, I pick up my next exciting encounter in the Ruins of Alph, a Steelix. Considering how awesome it was to use one in my Shining Pearl Flint video, I'm really excited to use one now. Or I would be, but an unfortunate encounter in Union Cave means that Steelix got killed by Dragon Rage. At first I thought I did something wrong in the setup, because moves like Dragon Rage and Sonic Boom should have been removed in the early game by the game-breaking moves option. But to be fair, both Cresselia and Electivire have more than 40 HP, so maybe that's why that was still in there? Anyway. As consolation, I get gifted with another Steel type on Route 33 in the form of a Scizor, and in the Slowpoke well, I find a Blaziken. This isn't the only surprise for me here, because this Team Rocket Grunt pulls out literal Satan. Thankfully, a couple of bites takes down Giratina, but a couple of battles later, Executive Proton also shows off his fancy Moltres. I know I have my own legendary as well, but man, Team Rocket got some big upgrades. I managed to scout Bugsy as a Fire-type gym, so I led Aerodactyl into his Chimchar. Much easier to deal with than his usual Scyther. Wing attacks and Bite takes care of Chimchar and Houndour, and the only slight roadblock was Ninetales, who landed a Confuse Ray and even got a burn with Ember. Even so, it was a fairly easy win thanks to Aerodactyl's attack and speed. There's also a quick rival battle as I try to leave town, and Silver has joined the Legendaries parade with a Registeel who quite rudely explodes in my face. Thankfully, Aerodactyl's part rock typing resists the attack, so it doesn't do too much damage. Then I swap into Electivire, so a few more low kicks deal with Probopass and Magneton. Honestly, a pretty cool Steel team. But the Legendaries don't end there. Once at Goldenrod City, I managed to scout Whitney as a Psychic Gym, thanks to this trainer who has both a Latios and a Jirachi. Regardless, I'm feeling quite confident about the fight with Whitney. Scizor should 4 times resist psychic moves, she's got an attack boosting nature, and the Technician ability. Natu is up first and gets one-shot by a super effective Pursuit, but it turns out that Miltank got swapped with another Jirachi. I know I won't be able to do much damage, so I use Focus Energy for some extra crit chance as Jirachi starts using Confusion. We trade minimal damage as we both resist each other's moves, but eventually Whitney heals with a Super Potion, and bad luck with Confusion chances leave Scizor with 4 HP. At this point, you'd swear that Jirachi was the one who used Focus Energy because critical hits and constant confusion means my team ate a lot of bad switches as I tried to find someone who could touch this thing. Jirachi even has access to Rest and a Lumberry for even more recovery that I was really struggling to deal with. Eventually, I get a bit desperate and sent in a Raticate that I caught on Route 34. She's just here for moral support and a clean sack, so she does her job wonderfully. This gives me a clean switch into Charizard, who is underleveled but still a fire type, so he gets off a few embers before his inevitable demise. I needed the clean switch into Aerodactyl, who can use Roost for some recovery, and with the pressure ability, I'm actually able to stall out all Jirachi's Confusion PP, so now I don't have to deal with the Confusion chance and Aerodactyl can resist the incoming Swifts. Still couldn't do that much damage though, especially with the rest recovery, but I survived long enough for the RNG to line up. And with my own Confusion chance from Supersonic, some Bite flinches, and a crit to round things off, I finally take down Jirachi. Man, even without a Miltank, Whitney still manages to tear a hole in my team. That being said, I've already got a good replacement for Charizard as Blaziken arrives back on the team, and I'm gonna need all the help I can get because there's another gambit of legendaries. I ran into a wild Regigigas on Route 35, which was unfortunately not my eligible encounter. Satan made another return, this time accompanying a toddler. And finally, at the Burn Tower, Silver showed off his own Cresselia as part of his new Psychic team, though he wasn't much of an issue. Lucky for me though, the spree of legendaries ends in my favor, as I chase off the 3 legendary dogs before running into God himself. Obviously this is an amazing encounter, but in an effort to keep things a bit more interesting, I just leave him in the box as a last resort. With my encounters out of the way on the nearby routes, I tried scouting Morty's gym typing, but his trainers were kind of all over the place, so I had to go in essentially blind. As it turns out, Morty is a ground type master, and maybe to make up for all the legendaries I had to deal with recently, his team is pretty weak. Phanpy, Gibble, Geodude, and an Onix, all of whom get annihilated by Scizor and a few crit Metal Claws. I didn't even get any attack boosts, but the Focus Energy and Technician ability were more than enough. There's a bit of back and forth between cities here, and quite a few encounters on the open ocean, but the next gym leader to worry about is Chuck at Cianwood. I managed to scout him as a water gym, so he might still have his signature Poliwrath, which would have been cool, but he just keeps up with the legendaries trend and throws a Feeny at me. Thankfully it's not very strong, and Electivire is kinda crazy, so a few Thunder Punches wipe out the Feeny, and Octillery doesn't stand a chance either. After Chuck, I skipped Jasmine to avoid the weird level cap issue and went to the Lake of Rage for my free shiny, Luxio this time. The Team Rocket base is mostly uneventful except for another Moltres, and another Giratina, and a Lugia during the admin double battle. Honestly, all these legendary battles are kinda scary, but the saving grace is that most of them have terrible early learn sets because you're not really supposed to be fighting them this early in the game. But with Team Rocket out of the way, I can take on Pryce, who successfully rebranded as a poison trainer, so I lead with Cresselia. Pryce seems to have taken lessons from Team Rocket, and his first 2 coughing go down to some super effective confusions, but he does switch it up with the Roserade as his ace. While trying to weather through the recovery from its berry and full restore, Cresselia takes a decent amount of damage from Magical Leaf, so to finish things off I need to switch to Scizor, but some Fury Cutters do the trick. With Pryce taken care of, I can backtrack to Jasmine, and I actually can't scout her type because I can't actually fight her gym trainers. Instead, I decide to lead with Scizor for her defensiveness, and Jasmine leads with a Jump Bluff. It actually outspeeds Scizor and sets up with Sleep Powder and Leech Seed, so by the time I get put to sleep for the second time, I decide to swap to Aerodactyl. She eats a Bullet Seed on the switch, but on the next turn a Wing Attack nearly takes out Jump Bluff, who thankfully goes for a Mega Drain rather than another Sleep Powder or Leech Seed. More Wing Attacks do the trick, as Jasmine follows up with a Roselia and a Parasect. Aerodactyl is just too powerful. It's around this point that I pat myself on the back for having such a cool team and making it through the gyms with relative ease, so naturally a Rocket Grunt presents me with my worst nightmare, a Wobbuffet. Now, this blue punching bag might be 14 levels lower than me, but it's got a lot of health, and my Scizor wasn't packing any heavy hitting moves. I use Focus Energy to fish for a crit one-shot, thereby bypassing a retaliatory counter, but it already knows Destiny Bond and Scizor's fate is sealed. I can't swap out because of the Shadow Tag ability, so on the next turn, a crit Fury Cutter takes down Wobbuffet and Scizor goes down. To add insult to injury, this Psychic Team Rocket Grunt sends out another Lugia, and then a Metagross, and then a Latios, and then an Execute, but still, what the... Fine, whatever. This was the first death in a while, and one that really stung, but that's the power of a random unexpected Wobbuffet. I power through the pain as Silver reprises a team of Psychic types that got Shadow Balled to death, and it looks like he stole his dad's Mewtwo. I don't think Giovanni's gonna be too happy about that one. Soon thereafter, Aerodactyl almost gets taken out by the combination of Garchomp and Palkia, and it's not long before Lugia makes another appearance. But the real trouble was Admin Archer and his beefy normal types. I guess I couldn't leave Goldenrod without running into trouble with a Miltank. Aerodactyl takes out Archer's Kangaskhan with 2 flies, but not before getting her defense lowered by a crunch. This means that when Miltank landed a Zen Headbutt for some hefty damage, I needed a swap, just as Miltank started a rollout streak. And I will fully admit, this is where I panicked and forgot that Blaziken would have taken neutral damage because he's part fighting type, and he probably could have just kicked the cow to death. But instead, I swapped into Electivire, who apparently couldn't outspeed the rolling cow, and died to 2 rollouts. So there goes my starter. I decided to sack Meganium as well because I felt it was the most replaceable on my team, and unfortunately, Miltank didn't miss a single time, so down she goes as well. Cresselia was able to mop up the rest of the fight. Archer's last Pokemon being a Slackoth just felt insulting, and if I had realized that rollout would have been that much of a threat, I probably could have swapped into Cresselia earlier and used Double Team, but hey, that's what happens when you Nuzlocke when you're sleepy, you make mistakes. But with that embarrassment out of the way, I made it to Clair, the last Johto gym leader, but the Great Dragon Tamer has been reduced to a lowly Bug Catcher. I know it's Gen 4, so bug type options are still really limited, but I had hoped Clair could have done better than a Cascoon, a couple of Beedrill, and a Dustox. I think even Bugsy would have found that underwhelming. With Clair out of the way, it's time for the Elite Four, but I had to run some errands for the Kimono Girls before finding out that Ho-Oh had been replaced with another Firebird, Moltres. Pretty cool, but into the box it goes for now. And it's not even the only legendary encounter I get, because shortly thereafter, both Azelf and Mesprit join the party on Route 26 and Victory Road respectively. I'm only mixing Uxie, and I could have gotten the full set. There's also another battle with Silver at the end of Victory Road, and he seems to have gone back to his roots as a Steel-type trainer, pulling out a Heatran and a Dialga, with honorable mentions Lucario and Skarmory. I'll skip this battle as well for the sake of the runtime, but the only real hiccup was Dialga, who got whittled down thanks to Leech Seed. And now it's time for a real challenge. With no indication of what the Elite Four looks like, I had to plan out my team with an emphasis on coverage. In the end, these are the guys I decided to go with, leveled up to the cap of 47. Up first is Will, a newly branded normal type trainer who leads with a Licky Licky. I started off with Cresselia for bulk, and with the choice specs, she was able to take it down without an issue, after Will misses a slam and a disable. Kecleon is sent out next, so I thought I'd abuse its color change ability by using Gastrodon's ground and water typing to my advantage. Gastrodon also has the Mystic Water item for a bit of a boost, so I stay in as Surf takes out Baneri, and leaves Girafarig in the red before I swip to Aerodactyl. Crunch finishes off Girafarig, and Will rounds things off with a Clefairy, which only uses Gravity before going down to a Wing Attack. I thought it was pretty cool that Will got a Girafarig as his ace, but regardless, he wasn't much of a threat. Next of the Elite Four is Koga, and the Icy Ninja sends out a Piloswine. Cresselia is up first again, and manages to take it down with a couple of Shadow Balls before Snover brings the hail. Snover almost goes down to another Shadow Ball, but manages to freeze me with a 100% accurate Blizzard. I agreed for the potential thaw out, but after that doesn't work, I swap into Aerodactyl, who I thought would take neutral damage thanks to the Rock type, but even if she did, I get instantly frozen by the Blizzard again. Thinking I'll fight fire with fire, or I guess ice with ice, I swap to Frostlass, who tanks the Blizzard well and gets a kill with Ominous Wind. Smoochum is out next, so I keep up the Ominous Winds, but the incoming Psychic does big damage and lowers special defense, so once Lapras comes out, I need to switch. Gastrodon comes back out to tank a Brine, and funnily enough, Lapras got stuck with the Black Sludge item, so it starts taking chip damage. A couple Mud Bombs do decent damage, as Lapras just sets up with Rain Dance and Paris Song. I have no idea why this prompted me to swap to Breloom, but he unfortunately gets instantly one-shot by an Ice Beam. Seriously, I don't know why I did this either. But anyhow, Gastrodon gets the kill next turn thanks to Mud Bomb and Chip from the Black Sludge. I swap to Blaziken to deal with Frostlass, and I get worried when it sets up Hail because of its Snow Cloak ability, but thankfully Blaze Kick connects, so I get the one-shot. A really messy battle, but at least Blaziken pulled through for me on the accuracy check. Moving along, it's time for Bruno, and I guess he decided to go easy on me after I embarrassed myself in the last battle. He led with a Wormadam and a Burmy, who went down to some Aurora Beams from Cresselia. And once I confirmed he was a Bug and not a Grass type trainer, I switched out of my Psychic type to Blaze Kick the rest of his team. Ariados and Yanmega were pretty cool to see, but he still wasn't much more of a hassle than Clair and her Beedrill, as Blaziken proves his MVP status. Rounding off the Elite Four is Karen, who starts off strong with a Crobat. It outspeeds to land a Confuse Ray, but Cresselia pulls through to connect with a hard-hitting Confusion. Mean Look prevents me from escaping on the next turn, and I hit myself in Confusion. But Cresselia snaps out of it on the next turn, so after getting poisoned by Poison Fang, she gets the kill with another Confusion. I get the one-shot on Spinarak the next turn, but Dustox survives long enough to set up a Light Screen before going down to the second Confusion. And by now, Cresselia has taken considerable damage from poison. I decide to swap to Frostlass, thinking that Ominous Wind will deal with Ghastly without much of an issue. But on the switch, Ghastly manages to land a crit with Dark Pulse, and instead one-shots me. Ouch. I get the return kill with a Crunch from Aerodactyl, and Karen sends out a Tentacruel. Now I think Tentacruel is a seriously underrated Pokemon, but it is not the time for admiration, so I swap into Gastrodon for the ground typing. Karen gets carried away with stat changes, so she wastes time using Barrier and Screech as I chip away with Mud Bomb and Muddy Water, so before long, I've beaten the Elite Four. Now I've lost a couple of party members on the way, but now it's time for Lance, and I'm very curious as to what the Dragon Master has in store for me. As it turns out, not much. His Bellsprout gets taken out by a super effective Confusion, as do both, yes, both of his Weedle. It does make it mildly interesting with a Toxicroak, but it's 4 times weak to Psychic, so it quickly follows suit. as does Gulpin and Budu. Really not the team I was expecting from the champion of the league, but that's just how it goes with randomizers sometimes. A random grunt might show up with 2 legendaries, and the champion might decide he's got a thing for unevolved poison types. Now, normally this would be a supremely anticlimactic end to an otherwise pretty amusing randomizer run, but this is a Johto game, so I've got a whole nother set of gyms to terrorize. A couple of logistical notes for Kanto. I decided to switch up my team for variety's sake, so I boxed my team of Elite 4 survivors and drafted a new party of 6. I still had plenty of legendaries to choose from, but I went with Moltres instead of another psychic type, and filled in the rest with some personal favorites. This is also the point where I started using rare candies, mostly for a certain ridiculously high-leveled endgame trainer, but also in case I wanted to use one of my Kanto encounters. There's not really much of a danger in losing your Pokemon while grinding on the wild Pokemon in Kanto because of the weird level difference, and if I want to use a level 2 Pokemon I found on Route 1, I'd rather not manually grind it to level 50. Anyhow, I ran the Kanto Gyms by order of level cap, which requires a bit of running around. First on the chopping block is Janine, who leads a team of ice types like her father Koga. Moltres makes quick work of Jinx with a flamethrower, but I decide to play it safe when Spheal comes out. Luxray switches in on a blizzard and gets frozen solid, but luckily enough thaws out immediately, so Spark gets the one-shot. Abomasnow brings in the hail, so I swap back to Moltres, who can easily tank a wood hammer before getting the one-shot. I expected Glalie to follow suit, but it actually lives with barely any health and retaliates with an ice beam. Janine uses a full restore on the next turn, so I just chip away with Ancient Power before another flamethrower does the trick, and last up is a Weavile. It's a bit of a tricky situation as Weavile is able to hit pretty hard and almost certainly outspeeds my entire team. Bronzong makes a brief appearance, but the chip damage from Hail makes a crit very dangerous, so I swap into Walrein for some tankiness and to ignore the hail damage. We trade Night Slashes for Body Slams, no Paralyze unfortunately, and I decide to just make a sack. Sceptile swaps in, and quickly goes down, before Luxray finally cleans things up with a Spark. A couple more crits from Night Slash might have actually wiped my whole team, so that is a shaky start to the Kanto Gyms as Sceptile gets replaced with Ninjask. I had originally intended her to be a Swords Dance, Speed Boost, Baton Pass setup, but as it turns out, the next gym has a Dark type specialty, and Ninjask learned X-Scissor at level 52. So for her first excursion against Lieutenant Surge, she'll fight a Darkrai. Yeah, I guess we haven't seen a legendary in a while. Luckily for me, it just spams double team for a while, so I set up with a Swords Dance, and once I'm able to land the X-Scissor, it's a clean sweep from there. Swords Dance with the Muscle Band item might have been a bit overkill, but Ninjask isn't that powerful on its own, so I'm glad things worked out smoothly. She even deals with Mightyena in one shot despite the Intimidate attack drop. It takes a bit of time to unlock Misty's gem because of the Power Plant side quest, but we quickly track down the Team Rocket Grunt and take him out, even if he's rocking a Mewtwo as well. Turns out that Misty took over for Lieutenant Surge as the Electric gym. I led with my newly evolved Garchomp, who only has Dig because I forgot to get the Earthquake TM, but she takes out Luxray and Mareep with ease. Things get a bit more complicated when Electrode uses Magnet Rise to ignore my Ground-type moves, but it still can't do much damage with Swift, so a couple of Dragon Claws do the trick. Up last is a pretty impressive looking Zapdos, but I guess its moveset wasn't great because it just spammed Charge and Ancient Power while I Dragon Clawed it to death. So that's Misty out of the way. Up next is Brock, who actually shares the same level cap of 54 with Misty, so I had to be very careful when it came to avoiding trainer battles on the way to Pewter City. And oh boy do I pity the trainers from Palatown in this version of Kanto, because Brock is a dragon trainer. Playing it safe, I decided to lead with a Choice Specs Walrein over Garchomp, which gives me enough damage to one-shot his Shelgon with Aurora Beam. Not wanting to make it too simple for me, Brock counters with a Rayquaza. Walrein is beefy enough to tank the incoming Outrage and gets another kill thanks to the 4 times effective Aurora Beam, and gives Gabite the same treatment on the next turn. This was actually super risky because for some reason I didn't think Gabite would outspeed without the evolution into Garchomp, and my Walrein only survived on 18 HP. Thankfully, I know I can outspeed and kill the second Shogun, so I stay in even at low health, but Brock isn't going quietly as he sends out another legendary dragon. I swap into Luxray to avoid potentially sending Garchomp into a dragon-type move, but Zen Headbutt doesn't do much damage. Crunch on the next turn does amazing damage thanks to the rivalry ability, and my luck doesn't stop there as I get the defense drop and the incoming Zen Headbutt misses. Brock heals with a full restore, but thanks to the defense drop, I get the one-shot with Crunch and the Dragon Tamer is finished. Seriously, I can't imagine trying to deal with him using only a Charmander or something. Next on the list is Sabrina, who ironically leads a gym full of fighting types, but she isn't much of an issue. For starters, she's only got 3 Pokemon, and I get to use my legendary bird again. Air Slash doesn't actually get the kill on Hitmonchan, who gets a crit Mega Punch in return, so as Sabrina uses a full restore, I use Ancient Power for chip damage, and I actually get the Omni Boost. With that, it's really over, so after some detect stalling, Air Slash takes out Hitmonchan, Makuhita, and Infernape all in one shot. I quickly moved on to Erica, who's our new resident rock-type trainer, so Walrein has a field day with Mystic Water and Surf. Onix and Golem get easily one-shot, but Armaldo manages to live in the red. It recovers with a berry, and then the incoming Ancient Power doesn't do much damage despite being super effective, so a couple more Surfs finish off Armaldo, and then the little Kabuto on the next turn. Blaine at the Seafoam Islands was a little tricky as I didn't have a perfect response to his gym of ghost types, but I had enough Pokemon with Crunch to do good damage. He led with a Frostlass into my Garchomp, and actually outspeeds but misses the Blizzard. My own Crunch just barely doesn't kill, so I swap into Luxray as Blaine heals. Frostlass then sets up with Hail, but thankfully another rivalry boosted Crunch gets the kill. Sableye is up next, so I use Spark for a bit of damage before getting hit with Confuse Ray. I switch into Walrein to ignore the incoming hail damage, just in time for Sableye to use Mean Look, but I quickly get the kill on the next turn thanks to Surf. Unfortunately for Walrein, Blaine's last Pokemon is a Rotom, so I swap back to Garchomp for Crunch as Blaine just uses Ominous Wind and heals for a bit before getting taken down. With most of the Kanto gyms taken care of, I send Blue back to his gym, and he's one of the few trainers that definitely gets the short end of the stick because of my type-themed trainers setting. It's a fun gimmick to see my favorite gym leaders gain a different type specialty, but Blue and Red lose their original impact by being forced into a type-specific team. That being said, Blue starts out strong. His team of newly minted steel types is led by an Empoleon, so my strategy of sweeping with Moltres is instantly squashed. I swap to Garchomp, who can tank an Aqua Jet, and I get the kill with Dig after he just goes for Mist for some reason. Blue keeps up the pressure by sending out Dialga, so I use Dragon Claw, forgetting that he'll take neutral damage from the steel typing, and after getting hit hard with Flash Cannon, I do the smart thing and just go for a Dig, which thankfully is enough for a kill. At this point, the rest of Blue's team falls apart, as Dig kills off his measly little Aeron, and Moltres uses Flamethrower to take care of Forretress and Beldum. If Blue's team was fully evolved, it would have been incredible, but with just an Aeron and a Beldum, he doesn't quite stick the landing. So now, with 16 badges under my belt, it's time for a final challenge at Mount Silver. This randomizer gave me quite a few interesting Pokemon to play with, so here's a final tour of my box before I head out. A lot of water types, and honestly I've got a lot of the classic Sinnoh Pokemon in there. Anyway, I've got no indication as to what kind of trainer Red is going to be, but this team got me through the Kanto region, so I've got faith. I lead off with Walrein, since we'll be in the hail, and now it's time to see what Red has in store. He starts off with a level 88 Mothim, which does a pretty hefty amount of damage with Bug Buzz as I retaliate with Aurora Beam. Looking back, I don't know why I don't have Ice Beam here, but just run with it. Red heals to full as I keep up the pressure, and I get taken all the way to 7 HP before I can get the kill. I swap Moltres to tank the incoming Bug Buzz from Butterfree, and Flamethrower starts making quick work of the rest of Red's team. Butterfree and Scyther get one shot, and then I get a bit of surprise as Red sends out a Starly. So apparently he's a flying type trainer and not a bug type, despite the fact that most of his Pokemon are bug flying type. Just like this Combee and the subsequent Vespiquen. Vespiquen was a nice touch, but in the end it still gets one shot by Flamethrower, so Red and his team of mostly bug flying types is defeated. I don't know what the odds are of having a type-themed trainer have 5/6 of his team be the same dual typing, but I guess that little idiosyncrasy kind of makes up for the weak battle. Maybe? But there it is, my run of a HeartGold randomizer with Hardcore Nuzlocke Rules, filled with legendaries and all kinds of craziness. I actually did a tally of all the legendaries I ran into and it was literally over 30. Most of them held by Team Rocket grunts, although Silver had 5 of them alone. Nuzlockes are usually meant to be kind of intense and tricky, but I threw some of that aspect to the wind by allowing legendaries and I just wanted to have fun with it. There's not many tips I can really give when it comes to randomizers since so much of it is RNG based, but these randomizer runs can be a great exercise in adaptability and chaos. I think if I were to try a randomizer run again in the future, I would make some adjustments to the settings. If I'm trying to be super serious about it, I'll forego the legendaries, at least on my end of things, and I think there's actually a setting to ensure that all Pokemon encounters are fully evolved by a certain level. That should help prevent weird endgame battles where I have to fight like a level 60 Weedle or something. But yeah. If y'all want to see more randomizer runs, feel free to let me know in the comments below, and furthermore, if you have any suggestions for settings I should be using, please let me know as well. I'm still kind of getting a feel for that. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. I should have another Hardcore Nuzlocke video out pretty soon, and it's got an interesting theme that I had some fun researching, so I hope you guys will stick around for that. But once again, it's the River here. Thank you all so much for watching.